We're going to be discussing during the 1 o'clock hour, the life and times of Julia Rodewald, as she was the clerk recorder for the past nearly 20 years. But starting things off here right now, we're going to be talking about life after. Basically what it is. We have a special guest joining us on the phone line today. She's Sandra Champlain. She's an author. She's a speaker. She's also a chef. She does a lot of stuff. Looks like with some of the big race circuit people as well out there too. She's written some books called How to Survive Grief, The Law of Chocolate, which would be an interview on its own, I think too. But right now she has a brand new book out called We Don't Die. It's a Skeptic's Discovery of Life After Death. And if you've got any questions you'd like to ask of Sandra, feel free to give us a call, 238-5775-238 KPRL, and her thoughts on the process of life after death. Sandra, thanks for joining us this afternoon. Glad to have you along.
Hello, Mike. I'm happy to be here.
Well,
Thanks
great.
for having me.
Well, my pleasure. Sandra, let's talk a little bit about this book, We Don't Die, A Skeptic's Discovery of Life After Death. I've taken a look at some of the passages, John. Quite interesting and quite a journey for you as well, too. Let's talk a little bit about, right off the bat, the reasoning behind the book. I understand your quest into life after death and dealing with your personal grief comes with the passing of your father many years ago. Now, what did you grieve, and what do you feel was left undone or maybe unsaid at that point?
Well, the truth of the matter is, it wasn't predictable that I'd have this book myself. Like you introduced me, I'm a chef. I own a coffee and chocolate store.
Yeah.
But as just a human being, I had a huge fear of dying. So that had me on a very hidden quest to find out, is there any proof of life after death? Do we go on? Very skeptical in nature. I never bought into any mediums or psychics or things. So for me to write this book, it's pretty big, because it was me to go out and prove these things aren't real. But suddenly, yeah, they are. Near-death experiences, mediumship, kind of weird and wacky stuff. I kept this information to myself, though, and it was, like you had mentioned, the death of my dad that actually brought everything to the surface. Those of us who have lost a loved one, it's extremely painful. And to answer your question, just before my father had passed, I had asked him, is there anything left undone, anything, he had cancer, that he wanted to do or say, because we knew his days were close by. Mm-hmm. And I had, at that point, very vulnerably shared with Dad my secret, which is this hidden life after death stuff that I unsurfaced. And Dad was very Catholic, and he just looked me in the eye, and he said to me, promise me you write a book. Promise me. Promise me. He says this information can help so many people not be afraid of dying and know their loved ones are there. And he says, my only regret is that I couldn't have written this book with you.
Now,
so, Mike, that's what's the genesis.
As far as the skepticism, being, I don't know if you were raised completely Catholic. You're saying your dad was Catholic. The life after,
we were.
Yeah, the life after death was one of the things that I grew up with as well too. What was your skepticism though with that faith?
It's interesting because we did have, or we were taught to have the faith in God and Jesus, and went to church on Sundays. We weren't heavy-duty Catholics, like really practicing. We did our part. We went to church on Sundays and went through confirmation and all those things. But when I developed this fear of dying, just having faith from what I knew from religion wasn't enough to quench the fears. And my dad was an airline pilot, very analytical, kind of an engineering kind of mind. And I'm 48 right now, years old, and growing up, we never heard of psychics, mediums, things like that, or if one did surface, or, it would be a lunatic. In my family, we'd hear that, there's charlatans out there out to scam people for their money, that there's no way people can communicate with the dead, that sort of thing. So that was the skepticism. It's like, if we can't see it or touch it or hear it, it's not possibly true. But like you said, yeah, but we were raised in a religious household to have faith, right? So it kind of contradicted itself. But, I just didn't believe that people could have any special possess any special skills to be able to communicate with dead people.
Interesting. Well, it's been a kind of a 15-year journey, sounds like, for you since the passing. What are you finding is the general fear of dying for most people?
Well, it's interesting because the fear of dying is like the number one fear all humans have. We also have a fear of being alone, and we have a fear of failure. So those are the top three. And I know firsthand, even though I believe in death, there is certainly a fear of how we're going to die. No one wants pain and suffering. But there's also a fear of what happens next. Does something happen next? Is our life for a reason? And we all struggle with that every day. We try to be the best person we can be. But often it's like, am I doing this for nothing? Is there something I can believe in? And to be honest with you, Mike, I really believe if you believe in life after death and you're not afraid of dying, you won't be afraid of living. So therefore, you can go after your dreams. You can say things you normally won't say to people, like the big I love you that many people are afraid to share.
Yeah.
And you can have a better life because you're not afraid of dying. You can really play full out while we're here.
And I think you might have kind of answered that, too, from your studies. You had brought up a factor of what purpose is life if we don't die. Maybe expand a little bit on that.
Sure. And this is my belief. There's who knows exactly what the truth is, but from everything I've studied and everything I've experienced, I think that coming to life here on Earth is a place where we get the body, we get 5 senses, we get these people to play with, and this is a place where we can learn, we can be educated, our soul can grow, if you will. We can have experiences, we can, both good and bad. We need to have sadness so we can experience joy. So that coming to Earth and being here is a really rich experience, and everything that happens to us is a learning experience. We grow. Even looking back on some of the worst things that have happened in our lives, we can all agree that if those things didn't happen, we wouldn't be the person we are today. So good and bad, I think life is a learning experience.
Well, I'm assuming, too, with the passing of your father, that, and a Catholic, that there was a heaven to you, but with the skepticism still there prior to your journey, what is heaven to you?
Well, heaven in the past, I had this vision of a place in the clouds.
Yeah.
And what I've researched, and people that can quiet their minds and actually kind of communicate, they say, through the veil with these deceased loved ones, and some of my own weird experiences, I believe heaven is right here. And, we grow up, like I said, we have to see it to believe it. But around each and every one of us right now, we have the radio waves that are connecting us. Many of us have wireless internet signal, GPS signals. We have this invisible world of energy that's happening around us. So we can't see it, but it's very, very real. And I believe that when our bodies die, because I say our bodies die, but we don't, our personality does not, we just change form. Like a log that burns is no longer a log, it turns to heat. When our bodies go, our personality still exists in that invisible dimension where the wireless internet is, but it's happening all around us. We're still made up of energy. Our essence still exists.
Now, I remember... I understand, too. I'm sorry to interrupt there, Sandra.
Okay.
But, again, we're talking to Sandra Champlain. She has a brand new book out, too. It's called We Don't Die, A Skeptic's Discovery of Life After Death. We'll talk about how you can find out where to receive the book and get the book. You're mentioning the radio waves, and I was reading as well, too. I guess back in 2005, you played around a little bit with the radio waves in some sort of a seminar. I guess you were talking about a specific, like a Sony system you were using or something. How does that tie in? I guess were you actually channeling loved ones through this, or what was the purpose of that 2005 class that you took?
It sounds really spooky.
Yeah.
It does. It's something called electronic voice phenomena.
Okay.
And as kids, many of us would play a record backwards, and we'd say, oh, we hear a voice in it, and be scared. Well, what electronic voice phenomena, it is using a tape recorder, digital tape recorder, and recording the sound of what's called white noise. And, of course, there's a scary movie that came out called White Noise.
Yeah.
But it's based on that premise, except for, I actually learned from the people who taught Universal Studios the art of this EVP, and there's never been a scary message, or they're all filled with love and humor. We keep our humor when we cross over. Mm-hmm. But it's recording sounds of, like I said, raindrops or a fan playing in the background. And when you play them back, it's possible that a voice will come out of the tape recorder. And it sounds like lunacy, and it sounds really crazy, but the theory is that our loved ones can manipulate the sounds within the recorder and actually have voices that come out. And, this is one of those things where I had taken a course on mediumship, Mike, and out of my own brain, I was telling people the loved ones around them accurately. Not all the time, but maybe 50% of the time. And I really wanted something more concrete, that if I was going to come out in public and tell people that life after death is real, like I needed to prove something to people. So I took that course on electronic voice phenomena, and it really scared the heck out of me, because lo and behold, out of my own tape recorder, when I was just taping the sound of raindrops, and I believed, or I want to believe, that my grandmother and grandfather were at the foot of my bed, and I was talking to them and saying, you know what, if this is real and I'm meant to help people believe in life after death, I said, I really need to talk loud, and then I'll say goodnight. And Mike, when I played back the recording, a man's voice says, good night, Sandra, and then two women whisper, good night, good night. It sounds like ladies' voices.
Yeah.
And a man's voice says, good night.
Now, is this something you hear, or is this something you could actually play for somebody and they would hear this as well, too?
Yeah, they will. I can tell you where people can hear it, because I, obviously in the 20 minutes we have, I can't give people the whole journey. But I started my own podcast, and I call it WeDon'tDieRadio.com. People can go there. Anyone can go there. And I interview people that have stories of why they believe in life after death. And your listeners can actually read the first few chapters of my book there, which is where all the good stuff is, all the studies that I did and why I believe. And then also, a man created a documentary about me who actually went from an atheist to a believer based on reading my book. And he's an Emmy Award-winning filmmaker. And he made a documentary. And the preview of the documentary is on that website. And you can watch it in the minute and a half of the preview. You can actually hear and see my demonstration of the EVP and see and hear the good night, Sandra. So it's spooky, and it'll give you goosebumps, but it's there for your listeners to...
Appreciate you sharing that. Now,
sure.
Sandra, I want to talk about this as well, too. You had mentioned life after death and a link into reincarnation of the soul from your exploration. If there's a reincarnation of the soul, is that necessary for the life after death, I guess, from what you found?
Well, from what I found, that it's not like we close our eyes here on Earth that final time, and then all of a sudden we're reborn into another life. There's a man named Ian Stevenson, who's now deceased, who made his life about studying reincarnation examples of children and seeing, did those people really exist in the past? And from what the experts say about reincarnation is that those that we are with here on Earth right now, excuse me, our family, our closest friends, we're all here to learn and grow together as souls. And so we wait till we all cross over, and then there's like a debriefing period. I mean, I'm making light of this, but it seems like there's more education to be had in heaven. You look back, what did you learn? What didn't you learn? What do we still need to do? And people wait for the whole group to come back together and play again in different roles. And I really have no idea how long that takes, if it's 10 years, 50 years, 100 years. There's people say that you can choose not to come back to Earth if you're the old soul and you've done your best here and you've really progressed. So I don't know. It's a very interesting concept.
Yeah.
That makes us look at how we're living life today, and making the most of it.
To some, I guess, death means an end or a completion of your journey on Earth. But you and others, I guess, there's life afterwards. Is this kind of a metaphorical or a religious backing that you come from out of this?
Well, it's interesting because I purposely didn't want to write a religious book, even though I've got the Catholic background. I wanted a book for all humanity, whether you believe in religion or not. It's like a handbook for being human. And so people are left having stronger faith in whatever it is that they believe in. People, like I said, the man who made the documentary was an atheist, didn't believe in anything, and it's not like I put any words of my own wisdom or my own thoughts about religion in it, but I find that people will have their own spirituality. They'll have whatever is important to them and how to live their life now.
Sandra, we have to take a quick break. If you can give me a couple, 3 minutes, I'll be right back with you. Again, we're talking to Sandra Champlain about We Don't Die, a skeptic's discovery of life after death.
Before we realize it, we will begin
life after death. But before I do that, let's give you a chance to tell everybody where we can find your book.
Oh, sure. It's available wherever you buy books. If you're an Amazon or Barnes & Noble person, you can find it there. Just type in or ask for We Don't Die. It's got a bright yellow cover with some purple on it. And, or wherever you buy books.
Yeah, it's bridge. Got to look for the bridge going across it as well, too. Yeah, of course, I'm looking at the softback. I don't know if the hardback is the same as the softback version, but an interesting book. Let's talk a little bit about that. What about proof of life after death?
Well, there's a bunch of things. The first thing I want to talk about, the big aha moment that I had is when I took a course in mediumship. And I did this under the radar, didn't tell anybody I was flying to Laguna Beach, California.
Oh, place to do that. Okay.
Yep. I took a course with a very famous medium named Doreen Virtue, her name. And there was just about 20 of us in the class. And I was, my fear of dying wanted this to be real, but my skeptical brain said, Sandra, you're out here on a wild goose chase. There's not going to be any evidence for you. And so one of the first things Doreen had us do is she says, I just want you to play make-believe medium. We're not going to do it now, but just to rest your mind that this is not a hard thing. This is how it's done. She says, everybody grab a partner. And so, I find this nice looking lady, and we sat down, and she says, okay, hold hands with your partner, sit knee to knee, close your eyes. And she says, again, we're not doing it really. This is how we would do it once, you're trained to be a medium. She says, I want you to imagine it's a real safe space. You've got a bubble of energy around you. And she says, our loved ones still have their personality, so you still have to be polite and just kind of psychically ask your partners, family, friends, if there's someone that wants to come through, introduce yourself, and if there's any messages you're to give your partner. So because this was playing make-believe, and I'm a chef, very creative, Mike, I said, I'll go first. And so the coaching was just to make up that there's a person standing behind our partner and tell a story. So if you see them or if you get any details about their life. So the fact that I was making this up, I had just free reign to say whatever I want. So out of my mouth comes, there's a man standing behind you, and I've got my eyes closed. I said, I think it's your grandfather on your mom's side. His name is Jan. He's from Denmark. He was a fisherman. He had blonde hair and blue eyes and really windburned skin, big gap between his front teeth. I see him puffing away in my vision, so I said died of lung cancer. And I said, and he never told your mom that he loved her. And, the message is you're supposed to tell your mom that, he loves her. So I opened my eyes, Mike, okay, it's your turn to play medium, and there's just streams of tears going down this woman's face. Her grandfather's name was Jan on the mother's side. He was from Denmark. He was a fisherman. He fit the description. He died of lung cancer, and he was a rough kind of a dad, and he never did tell his own daughter that he loved her. So that came out of my mouth, and I still get goosebumps telling that story because how the heck did that happen, right?
Wow. Yeah, I would have run on board. I was almost thinking German, but you said, Danish, so we're pretty close to that.
Yeah, so that's one thing. Of course, we mentioned the EVP, electronic voice phenomena. There's a bunch of mediums out in the world, and as much as I do think some people do scam people for their money, there are people like, there's a lady here in Massachusetts. Her name is Rita Berkowitz, and she is called the spirit artist. And what that means is that she not only tells you who's around you, but she's an artist, and she'll draw a portrait of them. And so after my dad died, even though I believed in life after death, I really, I wanted some confirmation that he was still around because I was hurting really bad. And when I saw Rita, she just picks up her notebook, and she just starts drawing away. And she told me first that my grandmother had passed. She described my little short grandmother. She described my grandfather walking around with his cane, and he had a German Shepherd. And she drew a picture of my dad that looked like a picture I have when my dad was in the Air Force back when he was in his late 20s. But so specific, and out of her mouth came so many specific things that, really personal conversations that I had
Sandra,
with my dad that she knew.
I hate to do this, but we've got to break out of here where we get about ready to get out. But Sandra Champlain again, the book is We Don't Die, A Skeptic's Discovery of Life After Death. You can find out more, too, by going to WeDon'tDie.com. Sandra, thanks for sharing.
Thanks, Mike. Have a great day.
All right, you have a great New Year.
Bye.
And coming up next, we have Julie Wood.